Hey, what's up guys? We're going to dive right into an analysis of the latest Let's Play for the campaign. So first off, let's take a look at the screen right here. Pretty epic with the Roman general there and then the lion in the background. Anyways, let's look at the menus right there. So what pops up first is the campaign. The prologue, it's going to be its own separate entity. I've been led to believe it's going to be against the Samnites, early Roman history, and then you have new campaign, lone campaign, multiplayer campaign. So that's going to be all stored in the Eagle. One step below that is going to be what I think is custom battle and multiplayer. A step below that is going to be settings. Then below that is the scroll, which is I think it will be replays, and then below that will be, exit the game. Anyways, here are the various factions that are all stuck in under different titles that you can choose from. The DLC and other stuff will come in after that and kind of fit into these other slots, but Eastern Empire, Successor Kingdoms, and the tribes, that's the main way they're going to categorize these. Once you select your particular faction, you're going to have the families. So for example, Rome, Cornelia, Julia, and then Junia that you can choose from, and each will have their own distinct abilities and personalities to them. Anyways, each faction you choose from will have two main principal abilities. So for example, all Romans have the Roman legions and the bread and circuses, so 10% experience for soldiers and +1 food. Then each of the particular families will have its own sets of abilities. So 2 overall for Rome and then 3 for each family. The Cornelii will basically have administrative bonuses, diplomatic bonuses, but then they'll suffer among the lower levels. The Julia, more warlike, that's Julius Caesar's family. They'll be able to conquer the barbarians more easily due to morale buffs and also cultural conversion, but also they have -25% public order due to cultural suppression. So they're good at attacking, but not so good at managing. Cornelii are good at managing, and the Junia are good for staying at home and doing well with public order, and then your wealth from agricultural buildings. But then they don't do well diplomatically. So those are the main ways that you have it. Anyways, Carthage will also have these 3 families that I'll break down for you real quick. Now, we didn't get to see as much of them, but this is what I was able to piece together. So at the top, the 2 abilities are going to be Phoenician trade heritage, +10% wealth, and mercenary armies, -40% mercenary upkeeps. Then you have the Hanonids, the Manganids, and the Barkids. Hanno, I believe, was well known for his for the farming. Carthage was a big farming populace, so have that. I think the Manganids are going to be more towards I think what it'll be trade. I'm trying to read those emblems, but it's hard to see. And then the Barkids are going to be the more military ones. Of course, that's where Hannibal comes from, etc. So you're going to see the same dynamics play out for all the various factions. Each family will have its own inner politics and pros and cons. Next, what you can also see at the bottom is you can scroll through these various ways that you can actually win the game. So one is going to be militarily, another one is economically, and a third one is culturally. So here at Compared and Contrast Rome and Carthage, you can see each time you're given a different set of parameters. So for example, you're 100 units total and 30 naval units. Carthage, on the other hand, has 90 units but 50 naval units. So Carthage is going to be more maritime based, and that's what you're going to see. Each of these military victory conditions is going to, have particular historical bearings in terms of, Carthage being more navy, Rome more land troops, and then also in terms of the places that you have to conquer. They're kind of pushing you to certain regions that those factions would have been interested in historically, so that's cool to see. Anyways, this is just going to be one of the main ways that you have to win the game, and it looks like it'll be pretty hard. For example, control 140 settlements either by direct ownership or through client states and military allies. That's a lot of settlements, so these are going to be long-term games, which you've always seen in Rome. It takes a while to win. But something that you're going to see that's pretty cool here is you can't, you don't just win militarily, you also have the option to win economically. So it's not like at the beginning of the campaign you choose which one you're going to be going for. You can, midway through the game, switch your priorities. It's just once you achieve those benchmarks, that's what's going to set off a victory. So you can win basically in 3 different ways. So you can see here with the economic victory, this one is for Carthage. It's control 80 settlements, so that's down from the 140. And then, you don't have to have any number of troops, but for example here, maintain trade relations with 12 factions, hold at least one of every strategic resource, have an income of at least 20,000 per turn, and then research at least 15 civil technologies. and that's going to be Carthage specific. You can expect that to change for different factions. Then they go ahead and show us the map here. It's really cool, really lush, and I'm going to go ahead and freeze to show you the things that you may have missed. So for example, here the mouse curses over a trade route. So you're going to have trade routes by land. It'll show you the total value and what you're importing and I believe exporting and who controls them. So I just wanted to highlight that and show it to you. Also look at the lushness of the African coast. That's something that you would have seen traditionally, or I mean historically, excuse me, whereas now it's more arid. In the past it was much more lush, and that's why the region became basically the breadbasket for Rome. The large granaries there supplied Rome with all its food and nourishment, and that's because the African coast was extremely rich, and that's why Carthage developed, its ability to have these huge agricultural fields and also trade and export a lot of its supplies. Anyways, as we're cursing over the maritime territories here, you can see that Mare Africum, which is the African Sea, basically is shared. So it's shared because I think Carthage, has a presence in it as well as probably allies. And so I think the way the tiles work is when you enter them, it'll have certain attributes. Fleets can engage each other, stuff like that. But also there's piracy, which will be pretty endemic. So you can see here 30% sea trade wealth in adjacent ports is lost. And you'll see that in other places of the map it'll be 30 or 15, and it'll go up and down. And I'm sure there's things that you can do to rid the seas of piracy. So, for example, that was actually historically important. The Romans, or I'll start off with Julius Caesar. He was kidnapped by pirates, later escaped and came back with a vengeance and killed all of them. But also Pompey was commissioned to go and rid the Mediterranean of pirates. He was highly successful, given the largest Roman fleets in history, I believe, and they had a very successful campaign in squelching these pirates. So it was very important historically, and I'm glad to see it reflected. Anyways, I combined some of the trade routes you can see here. So a lot of stuff going on here with all different places. So Carthage is doing well. They're trading with a lot of people. You can see wood and what looks like grain or something like that is going to be the main commodities that are traded here, and then those vases are also going to be traded. But Carthage here, you can see dominating it at the top of each of these lists, and you can see the Etruscan League there, and ominously Roman is not present, but you'll see that later. Anyways, here I'm highlighting some more of the trade routes, and I think these are trade routes that you can raid, but raiding is going to be less of an annoyance because as long as you hold the entire tile, anyone who wants to come in and raid will have to engage your fleet. So you don't have to patrol up and down, you just have to have units stationed within each of the tiles. Anyways, as we look at Carthage here, it's interesting how this large city looks. It's pretty epic, it's huge. And look how the red kind of spills into the ocean, so that means you'll be able to intercept forces that are coming along the coast for a D-Day assault or something like that. Anyways, as we move along here, they show off more and more of the campaign. This is where we see more piracy, and look at that island on the top that's floating. It's got ravens floating around the army. I think that's maybe a barbarian that has sacked that city in particular. Anyways, I think that might be a pirate fleet to the right, and here's the city I was talking about on that island. Anyways, as we come back to Sicily, this is going to be a very important island historically, the scene of the First Punic War, a lot of battles here. Anyways, two cities here. Look at the bottom left, that's going to be a strategic bridge. Top right, you can see shallow water where a trade route will automatically turn, it seems like into ships that can go back and forth, so you don't have to have a trade fleet there. The trade route will just automatically go across. So maybe that's something we'll see a bit more, is these trade routes being able to cross some of the terrain like that. Anyways, what they do is they glance over briefly some of these building images. So what I did is I basically went through frame by frame and I extracted as much of the information as we could. So anyways, here, one of the main things that you see is when you curse over a city, you'll be able to see basically the garrisons that you have. So for example, you'll have Carthaginian hoplites, mobs, citizen militias, javelin men, all these different things based on how large the city and what buildings you have, and that's cool. I think that'll be also in addition to an army that you can put there. These will be additional garrisons that'll come into play, and it's cool to see a mob. They will obviously be just cannon fodder essentially, but they'll have 270 units. So it's cool to see the citizenry coming into play. Anyways, I also highlighted the buildings, so we'll go start from the top left and go around clockwise. So you see that 5 in red, that means that's an expansion of your city, but it takes 5 building tiles. Currently they have 2, it's impossible. Next you have that building that says, upgrade me to level 2, but again, that's not possible with the amount of tiles. Then the one I highlighted above that is going to be a military camp, a minor one, and it allows you to raise more troops so you can upgrade that and of course recruit more and more things. Then the next one to the right of it is the Temple of Melkart, which has religious implications. It takes away food, but it gives you public order, it gives you wealth, and more trading, and then it also provides you with a mob. Then to the right of that, you can see those the building options. I think the one on the bottom that is like breaking it says, do you want to demolish this building? And then the one on the top I think is going to be how to trade a building. Next, the next ability that you'll have is going to be this one in orange, which is basically just upgrade it from a basic level up into level 1. Then as we go to Irrigation Ditches, that'll allow you to to keep upgrading your abilities. +4 unit replenishment, 50% wealth, 8 food, but -1 public order. And then if you look to the right of that, where I have the Irrigation Ditches highlighted, that's basically going to be upgrade it to level 3, or once again demolish it or turn it into a different building. Then below that is just going to be another one of those Temples of Melkarts, I believe, with the same options. Now we're back on Syracuse, and they're going to talk about the edicts that you can have. So once you control all the smaller regions in a province, that province can have an edict, and the edict will have different abilities. So for example, for Carthage, rally the mercenaries, +10% or -10% mercenary hiring costs. And then the other one is going to help increase your trade. So you do that, and it'll have province-wide benefits, and they'll have a visual indicator. So green was for anything I think trade related, and then red will be military, and yellow will be basically for economy. So they'll have different indicators for you to better understand what's going on. But that's just one way to see the edicts in action. Then what they're going to do is they're going to go up to Rome, and Rome has actually been conquered by the Etruscans. Now this is definitely a change historically. But anyways, let's take a look at Rome itself. You can see the Palatine. I think I see the Aventine Hill, and also you can see the Forum. So Rome is very highly developed, and it's interesting to see that there are 3 armies standing on the outside, none of them actually on the inside of Rome. So I'm guessing Rome will come with its own garrison forces, as we saw in Sicily. But you can also place armies on the inside, like we saw in the Suebi campaign playthrough before. Next, they kind of run us through the campaign map here, seen from above. You can look through all the different factions. Of course, they're only known factions, so you're gonna have to scout them first in order to be able to interact with them. And then you can see sort of your standing on the left, if you're trustworthy or not. Macedon, it would be direct but trustworthy. Here you can see when you mouse over different people, how you're kind of interacting with them. So for example, the Seleucids here, overall it's going to be -34 unfriendly, and that's because you have treaties with their enemies. So this is basically what they talked about with having the clarity when dealing with other people, so you can see exactly what gives you a bonus, what gives you a negative effect, and you'll judge from there. Anyway, this is an example of a positive relationship, and you can see on the top having a lot of military actions against their enemies, and having treaties with them in the past on and off will have a positive effect, whereas treaties with their enemies and maybe even cultural aversion will lead to a downgrading in that. But overall, this is a friendly relationship. Anyways, thanks so much. I hope you enjoyed. Once again, stay tuned for more videos.